Good evening, everybody, and welcome to History Bite number 14, dated August the 22nd, 2020. I'm Walter, your mobile historian and blue-collar scholar. This History Bite is entitled More on John Adams. Now, of course, you all know by now that John Adams is my favorite American founding father, my main man, and it's very unfortunate that he is so undervalued and underappreciated when teachers educate people about America's founders, okay? And John Adams has such a decorated and detailed resume that he could easily rival Washington and Jefferson and, Hamilton and so many others. But of course, he is neglected. And so it's up to people like me to bring out his accomplishments so that everybody knows. Okay. Aside from being, one of the loudest voices and one of the greatest agitators for American independence, as well as being a lifelong opponent of slavery in both word and deed, John Adams, in 1770, was the lead counsel for the British officer and soldiers involved in the Boston Massacre of that year. I know you've heard of that event. And thanks to his powerful advocacy, nearly all of them were acquitted of the charges against them. In the late 1770s, he became the lead author for the Massachusetts Constitution, which would come into effect in 1780. I'll add that document, the Massachusetts Constitution of 1780, is still in effect to this very day. In its Declaration of Rights, Adams deliberately wrote Article 1 to read that all men are born free and equal. The goal here was to lay the foundation for the destruction of slavery in his state of Massachusetts. That goal was accomplished just 3 years later. Well done, sir. In 1785, John Adams was appointed as the first United States ambassador to the United Kingdom, of one of the most prestigious ambassadorships to this very day that one could receive. In 1789, he became America's first vice president, serving in this position for 2 terms under President George Washington. In 1796, he himself was elected America's second president, as we've covered in a previous History Bite about the 1796 presidential election. In the late 1790s, he assisted the revolutionaries on the island of Saint-Domingue, now modern-day Haiti and the Dominican Republic, but specifically focusing on Haiti, in winning their independence from the French. How did he do that? Quite simply by supplying them with both money and arms. You don't hear about that every day. Unfortunately, Mr. Adams lost the 1800 presidential election to Thomas Jefferson, and his resentment over such led him to depart the executive mansion in advance of Jefferson's March 4th, 1801 inauguration, returning back to his estate known as Peacefield in Massachusetts. At that point, the friendship between Adams and Jefferson had reached its nadir and would take some time before it would be restored some years later. After leaving the White House, of course, Mr. Adams thought he was going to die soon. I mean, he was 65 years old. But that was not in the plans, and he would live, in fact, for another 25 years. In 1812, his formerly estranged friendship with Jefferson was restored, and the two exchanged more than 100 letters between 1812 and 1826, when both men would die on the very same day, the 4th of July, 1826, Independence Day, America's 50th birthday, exactly 50 years after independence would be declared from Great Britain. Okay? It is nothing but sheer providence that both men would die on the 4th of July. Two of the most important founders in American history would both die on July 4th, exactly 50 years to the day that Jefferson's Declaration was adopted and American independence would be officially recognized on that day thereafter, even though, of course, as I've told you before, independence was actually declared on the 2nd. For all intents and purposes, since July 4th is the day that Jefferson's Declaration was adopted by the Second Continental Congress in its current wording and form, that is the day that American independence is officially recognized as having happened. But since both men died on that day, that is nothing but a landmark event, quite simply. Adams was 90 and Jefferson was 83, all right? And that's just remarkable to me, So I just wanted to add these other tenets of Adams's decorated resume so that you too may know more about one of America's greatest founders, one who is so often underappreciated and neglected. I thank you so much for listening to this History Bite, and I would like you to continue listening to them. If you like this video, please hit like at the bottom. Please also check out my YouTube page, indexed under Juarez Lee Shelton. Walter is the name I use to make these videos and use on my writings, my official pseudonym, my preferred name. But please check that out, and I look forward to talking to you at the next History Bite. Take care, and thank you again.